Hey everyone, happy Thanksgiving. Yeah, it's that important day, and you know what the main event for Thanksgiving is, right? Football. 3 games. Yeah. Alright, well, also there's a great feast with family but you know what? The interesting thing about Thanksgiving that you might not know is that even though we celebrate by eating a turkey, turkey wasn't actually served at the original Thanksgiving. There's a lot of interesting facts about the first Thanksgiving and, well, the history of Thanksgiving in general. I'll be sharing some of that with you. So are you ready? Are you excited for a history lesson about Thanksgiving? Well, fuck you and get one anyway. Here you go. It's the Rip City Fantasy Football Week 11 recap. So how did the first Thanksgiving come to be? Well, the first Thanksgiving was a celebration put on by the Pilgrims after their first harvest in the New World in October 1621. The feast is recorded to have lasted 3 days and was attended by 90 Native Americans and 53 Pilgrims. Part of the reason for such a successful harvest was that Squanto, who was actually a former slave who was kidnapped and brought to London, learned the English language and thus was able to translate for the Pilgrims. He and many of the other Native Americans taught the Pilgrim colonists how to grow many crops, including maize, or as we call it now, corn, which back then cost a lot less than a buccaneer. And speaking of buccaneers, in the most contrived segue of all time, it was Buccaneers wide receiver Mike Evans who helped me get the win this week, providing much more than mere niblets, giving me the whole cob with 34 points. I know, that was really corny. He shucked 6 receptions for 120 yards, getting a touchdown with the big touchdown bonus. Plus, he picked up this drop here by Jameis Winston and returned that for a touchdown as well. Mike Evans was definitely amazing this week, helping me crop up another win and growing my record to 10-1, still in first place. Matt came up short in his harvest, moving down to 5-6 in 6th place. The first Thanksgiving feast might look a little bit different than the feast that we have now in our modern Thanksgivings. As I said before, turkey wasn't really part of the first Thanksgiving meal, but many other birds were, such as ducks, geese, and even swans. Instead of a stuffing, herbs, onions, or nuts might have been added to add some extra flavor. Venison was most likely the main dish. Also, a lot of fish and shellfish were used, such as lobster, bass, clams, oysters. In addition, many fruits and vegetables were had as well, such as onions and beans, lettuce, spinach, cabbage, carrots. They also had blueberries, plums, grapes, gooseberries, raspberries, and of course cranberries, which the Native Americans ate and used as a natural dye. Bonus fact for you there. And while they did have pumpkin and squash, they didn't have potatoes. So no turkey, no stuffing, no mashed potatoes and gravy. It's very different than what we have for our modern Thanksgiving, that's for sure. But nonetheless, it was considered quite the feast. Team Hell Yes had a big feast this week of fantasy points in this week's blowout of the week. Beating Sioux Tang Clan 168.74 to 114.44 as she scored the most points for the week this week. And her healthiest eater this week was definitely Tyreek Hill, who scored 2 touchdowns, including one for the bonus off of 10 receptions and 215 receiving yards. Wow, he was really feasting on the Rams defense this week. Mahomes kept feeding him the ball over and over and over again, and Tyreek Hill was eating it up and eating up yards on the field, adding 45.5 fantasy points to Tracy's cornucopia as she moves up to 2nd place at 9-2. Sioux Tang Clan has hit a famine recently, losing 3 in a row, moving down to 11th place at 4-7. Did you know that Thanksgiving wasn't really originally considered a holiday? That's right. In 1789, George Washington declared Thursday, November 26th a Thanksgiving holiday, but it was only for that year, and it wasn't actually connected to the Pilgrim Feast, but rather intended as a public Thanksgiving and prayer. It wasn't until 19th century poet, author, and magazine editor Sarah Hale started a campaign to persuade President Lincoln to make Thanksgiving an official holiday, using her magazine to build public support. Hale was highly patriotic, and she read about the 1621 Feast of the Pilgrims, becoming captivated with the idea of turning it into a national holiday. It was actually Hale who started the tradition of serving turkey and stuffing and pumpkin pie and mashed potatoes and gravy and candied yams at Thanksgiving dinner. Probably to try to push the recipes that she published in her book. In 1863, Lincoln finally gave in and set Thanksgiving as an official holiday celebrated on the fourth Thursday of every November every year. It wasn't until 1939 when Franklin Roosevelt moved it to the third Thursday. And why did he do that? To help the economy by making Christmas shopping season a little bit longer. So if you're one of those people that are tired of the Christmas season being so long, you can thank FDR for that. Let's go back to Sarah Hale though for a moment, as you may not have known about the magazine she published or the story that I told you, but I'm sure you know about one of her works, as she was the writer of the children's nursery rhyme, Mary Had a Little Lamb. But you know who's not a little lamb? Is Jared Goff, because he is a full-grown ram, helping the team formerly known as Relax ram a win down ball fondler's throat, 137.72 to 95.06. The rest of his team didn't really provide much of a spark. I mean, look, he's got Brandon Cooks and Jared Cook. That's too many Cooks. It's a good thing too many Cooks didn't spoil the Goff this week, as Jared Goff hit 41.12 fantasy points off of 413 passing yards, making the Kansas City Chiefs defense look sheepish with 4 passing touchdowns and running one in himself. Then he made mutton out of Casey, moving him up to 9th place at 4-7. Casey falls like a lamb to the slaughter, all the way to 12th place at 3-8. So that's how we get to the modern Thanksgiving. Of course, Sarah Hale did leave out a little bit of the history there, which we'll cover right now. The truth is, while that first Thanksgiving did celebrate a treaty between the Native Americans and the new settlers, unfortunately that peace didn't last long. As word spread in England about the paradise found in the New World, the Puritans began arriving by the boatload. Finding no fences around the land, they considered it to be a public domain. Joined by other British settlers, they seized the land, capturing strong young natives for slaves and killing the rest. But the Pequot Nation did not agree to the peace treaty Squanto had negotiated, and they fought back. The Pequot War was one of the bloodiest Native American wars ever fought. In 1637, near present-day Groton, Connecticut, over 700 men, women, and children of the Pequot tribe had gathered for their annual Green Corn Festival. In the pre-dawn hours, the sleeping Indians were surrounded by English and Dutch mercenaries who ordered them to come outside. Those who came out were shot or clubbed to death, while the terrified women and children who huddled inside the longhouse were burned alive. The next day, the governor of Massachusetts Bay Colony declared a day of Thanksgiving in honor of this slaughter. After that, massacring Native Americans village by village became an American pastime. Women and children over 14 were sold into slavery while the rest were murdered. Boats loaded with as many as 500 slaves regularly left ports of New England. Bounties were paid for Indian scalps to encourage as much death as possible. So there it is. Yeah, the first Thanksgiving was just to celebrate a massacre. Sorry to burst your bubble once again, but one massacre that's actually worth celebrating is the Rams massacre of the Chiefs offense. While they did allow 51 points, they put up 2 touchdowns of their own, tacking on 75 return yards as well. And they certainly brutalized Patrick Mahomes as they beheaded the Chief, just like the Puritans beheaded the chief of the Wampanoag tribe, then impaled his head on a pole in Plymouth, Massachusetts, where it remained on display for 24 years. Gross. The Rams' beheading of Patrick Mahomes came to the tune of 3 sacks, 2 fumble recoveries, and 3 interceptions, adding up to 28.5 fantasy points for I'm Not Even Flexing, as he took down Born for This 98.9 to 82.68. Chris savagely moves up to 5th place at 5-6. Steven gets scalped down to 7th place at 4-7. So you see, as I'm sure you can all agree, the savages back then were actually the settlers and not the Native Americans. Thank goodness our Thanksgiving traditions these days are a bit less savage and bloody. So, on that note, let's go on to something a bit lighter. Our modern traditions are a bit less deadly and a lot more fun. We have a great big meal, and we get to spend time with a lot of our friends and family. Though sometimes they do fly out of town and you have to accommodate them at your own house with their kids and the yelling, Kevin! And the spilling and the messes and all the food you have to buy, and not just the Thanksgiving meal, but for every night they're there.
There you go. That's $122.50.
It's my brother's house. He'll take care of it.
Heck, at that point, you may as well take advantage of your local Hilton. Los Lobos sure took advantage of his local Hilton this week, as TY, not to be confused with this TY, put up 39 points off of 9 receptions for 155 receiving yards, and he overstayed his welcome in the end zone with 2 touchdowns, including 1 for the bonus, helping accommodate Los Lobos with a win, 164.22 to 126.12 over Tecmo Stan. Anthony finally checks out of last place, moving up to 10th at 4-7. Stan better watch out, or he's going to check out of playoff contention early, moving down to 8th place, also at 4-7. So there you go. From the first Thanksgiving to the modern day, that feast has certainly gone through a lot of changes over the years, hasn't it? The only thing that's probably stayed consistent is the high cholesterol. Yeah, don't overdo it. I don't want to hear about any heart attacks over the holiday. As it is, I'm sure Keena had a near heart attack this week, as it came down to the wire. And to tell us more about this close call of a myocardial infarction, here is the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be, Brett, the Hitman Hart, with the heart attack of the week.
Hey everyone, I don't really celebrate Thanksgiving because of course I'm Canadian, but I do want to give thanks to you, Ty, for making me that sweet new logo, because this is of course my show now. Shawn Michaels still dropping the ball, still hasn't shown up, we have no idea where he is, so I'm going to go ahead and do the heart attack of the week. I am of course the excellence of execution, the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be, Brett, the Hitman Hart. And let me tell you something, it sure as heck was a near heart attack this week.
Aaron's bitch went into Monday night with a seemingly unsurmountable 74.48 fantasy point lead on Back to the Future, as he only had Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce left. However, with the 6 touchdown performance from Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce getting over 100 yards and a touchdown himself, that insurmountable lead dwindled to under 6 points late in the fourth quarter. All Reichel would need would be a touchdown from one of his 2 remaining players, and he'd be able to pull off the miracle. Sakina's heart must have been pounding as she was watching Mahomes do his work, with his team only down 1 touchdown, and Reichel's team only down 1 touchdown. It came down to the wire, but relief came for Sakina as Mahomes threw 2 interceptions, and Back to the Future's comeback had been thwarted, and Aaron's bitch's cardiac arrest had subsided, as Sakina got the win, 157.08 to 149.22 over Ryan, reviving her to 6-5 in 4th place. Reichel has a bit of a setback to 3rd place at 8-3.
Well, I'm definitely thankful that you're still with us, Keena. And make sure not to clog your arteries too much this Thanksgiving, just in case you have another close call. Well, I'm out of here. I'm going to go watch some hockey while you Americans stuff your fat faces. I am the excellence of execution, the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be, Brett, the Hitman Hart, and this was your heart attack of the week.
Well, Brett, even though you're Canadian and don't celebrate Thanksgiving, I definitely give thanks to you for your contribution. But now we come to the part of the show that we're all very thankful for. Oh yeah, that's right. Because we now take the time to salute the players on your pine, piling up fantasy points you'd rather have in your starting lineup in a segment we like to call On Your Bench. So there's about a bajillion Christmas specials and movies out there, but only like 3 or 4 Thanksgiving specials? What's up with that? Well, I guess I'll just highlight the few that I do know of. Well, we all know Charlie Brown Thanksgiving. You know, the whole Peanuts gang who are completely unsupervised because their parents are like on drugs or something, having to create their own Thanksgiving feast, even though they only know how to make toast. Draquan Smith of the Saints can certainly relate, as he only knows how to toast his opponents, as he's more of a downfield threat than a volume guy, putting up 26.7 points that if you would have had in your lineup, would have gotten you the win.
Good grief.
That's right, good grief. Because Smith had a good game, but it gave you grief watching his points pile up on your bench.
This time I'm gonna kick that football clear to the moon.
Every year, Charlie. Every year. Let's go to the other side of that match, as Keena, you did get the win, but it wouldn't have been such a close call had you made the right moves. You had the smarts to pick up Josh Adams off the waiver this past week. But I guess you weren't smart enough to start him.
No!
Josh is headed home to spend Thanksgiving with the Adams family. Okay, no, not that Adams family. But I will say that it was creepy and kooky, mysterious and spooky that he ended up on your pine instead of being in your starting lineup. Now, when we think of the Adams family, we think more Halloween, but lest we forget that brilliant Thanksgiving play put on by the kids and Adams family values.
Eat me!
Sauteed and barbecued.
Eat me!
Once were pets, but now we're food.
Wait.
Wednesday Adams certainly wasn't messing around.
The gods of my tribe have spoken. They have said, do not trust the pilgrims.
And neither was Josh Adams this week, scoring the first touchdown of his career. You're lucky your performance didn't go up in flames, Keena, leaving the on-fire running back to roast. On your bench! Now we come to the On Your Bench All-Star of the Week, who just so happens to be... Oh, wait a minute. No way. It's me! For the first time on this segment this year, and I am the All-Star of the Week because, well, first of all, how was I to know that Ingram was going to show up finally?
Oh, hi, Mark.
But what I can't give you an excuse for is my choice at QB. I started Deshaun Watson at a tough Washington defense and sat a red-hot Cam Newton against a cold Lions team? What was I thinking, man? No, sadly, I won't be doing the room for this one, as it's not a Thanksgiving movie at all. I just like doing the high mark thing whenever I talk about Mark Ingram. So which movie will I be covering? Well, my own personal favorite Thanksgiving film.
Where's your other hand? Between two pillows. Those aren't pillows.
In a new film by John Hughes. Planes, trains, and automobiles.
See that Bears game last week? Yeah, hell of a game.
Starring Steve Martin and one of my all-time favorite comedic actors. Even though I got the win, it was infuriating watching Cam Newton put up those points on my pine. And Deshaun Watson's poor performance was just plain annoying.
Two happy clams just whistling down the road.
Flintstones, meet the Flintstones, they're the modern Tony family.
I did get the victory, but I could have had a bigger win had I gone to bed with Cam Newton instead of leaving him out in the cold. On the bench! Well, everyone, thanks for tuning in. I hope you had fun, and I hope you have a very safe and happy Thanksgiving. This time of year, I always like to think and reflect on the things that I am thankful for. And one of the things I'm definitely thankful for this year is this great and wonderful league. You guys have been awesome. Keep it up. Thank you so much. And yeah, let's keep making this the best season ever. Speaking of which, hey, Asher, this week if I beat you, I've clinched a number 1 overall seed. So, yeah, don't think I'm going to be going easy on you this week. Everyone else, prepare. Good luck. Asher, I've got Smack Talk coming for you soon, so stay tuned.